Hello everyone, I am Dr. Sana Faruqi, Assistant Professor from the Department of English, BSSS Bhopal. Would like to welcome you all in today's session where we are going to talk about someone who is one of the lake poets, someone who was friends to literary luminaries S.T. Coleridge, Robert Southey, William Wordsworth and William Hazlitt. We are going to talk about someone who wrote his works with a pen name or pseudonym Elia, and also whose sister lost her mental sanity and in a violent fit of insanity she stabbed her mother Elizabeth Field. Can you guess whom are we going to focus in today's session? Yes, we are going to talk about Charles Lamb's essay Dream Children, which is a reverie. So let us go ahead. Let's talk about Charles Lamb first. Now, he is the one who is an English essayist. He was a poet, fiction writer and a critique. He belongs to a literary era of romance, that is romantic age. He was the most lovable and read English essayist of all time. He was one of the significant members of the Lake Poets. And yeah, before moving ahead, I would like to ask you a question that what are Lake Poets? So, the Lake Poets were a group of English poets who all lived in Lake District of England, that is UK, and in first half of 19th century. So, in his group there were many like William Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge. These were very close friends to Charles Lamb. Let us go to the next slide. Now, let us talk about Dream Children. So, in today's session, we are going to focus on essay titled Dream Children, which is a reverie. Now, before going ahead, I want to ask you a question that what do you mean by a reverie? We will talk about that later. So, this is just a kind of essay which has been shared by Charles Lamb, where he has been being a daydreamer and he has been just sharing his nostalgia, his loss, his regret and so many past memories. Right, coming back to the next point, he belongs to his famous work Essays of Elia, published in London magazine. So, we are going to focus on Dream Children, which has been there in his famous work Essays of Elia. Now, what is Elia here? As we already have mentioned that Elia is a pen name or a pseudonym of Charles Lamb. Now, here he has been referring himself yes, he has penned down the essays as personal account of his life devoid of any didactic or moral lessons. In this essay, you will find that there is no moral message at the end. He has not been keeping any didactic or moral lessons in it, but he has been sharing his nostalgic feelings. He has been just being a daydreamer, and whatever he had lost in his life, he has just been sharing it with his readers in first person narration. So, there is no such didactic or moral lessons at the end of it. Now, next is the tone of the essay shifts from humorous to tragic. If you will find that there are so many humorous elements being shared by Charles Lamb in this essay, at the same time somewhere you will find that it is moving towards a tragic note. Now, next is Lamb describes the death of his beloved brother, great grandmother, whom he loses at an early age of life. You will find that Charles Lamb met a series of deaths in his life, be it his elder brother, be it his great grandmother or mother. So, that is the reason you can see that loss can be felt in his writing style in Dream Children too. Coming back to the next slide. Now, while writing this work, it can be seen that he feels so depressed on the loss of unrequited love for Alice. Now, who is this Alice? We will talk about the characters in the next slide. He has also been regretting not marrying her. Actually, Charles Lamb was in love with a lady called Anne Simon. Anne Simons was the name, and he could not marry her, and that is the reason somewhere he has been being a loser, because he has already met a series of deaths in his life. He could not get the love of his life. He could not he was accompanied with an insane sister, Mary, and somewhere he has been keeping himself just like a tragic figure. So he has been keeping regrets that the happy and joyous day of his childhood are gone in the blink of an eye. He could not come out of that loss, and he was just wondering that everything had happened in just a blink of an eye. Loneliness to the heart, desperately yearning for return of the old happier days. Somewhere he has been yearning for happiness. That is the reason he has been keeping nostalgia in his writing in Dream Children. Next is, there is a climax in this essay. When will we meet that climax? At the end of this essay, you will come to know whatever has been mentioned in that essay is just being dreamt by Charles Lamb, who was just keeping a type of short nap or siesta. So the readers become aware of the reality that the children listening to Lamb's stories are nothing but a figment of his imagination and a dream of a sleeping man. So you can find that this is just a kind of surprise at the end of this essay. And if we will talk about themes of it, we will find that this essay has been revolving around the happy childhood days and the lonely adult age of Charles Lamb, and it brings to mind the transient nature of life where nothing remains forever in individual's life. So everything is uncertain. This is what theme has been saying in this particular essay. Coming back to the characters which we are going to meet in it, you can see that Charles Lamb is very much there in this essay because he has written this in first person narrative, and his pen name is Elia. Now next is John L. Now what is this John L? John L is John Lamb, who was the elder brother of Charles Lamb. Third one is Bridget. Now Bridget is Sister Mary. In this character you can find that Bridget has been mentioned, and Bridget was actually an insane sister of Charles Lamb. Next you can find Alice 1 and Alice 2. Now Alice 1, in this essay, Alice 1 was Anne Simmons, the love of Charles Lamb's life, whom he got married only in essay, not in real life. That is the reason he is being nostalgic here. It is just a reverie being shared by him. And Alice 2 is Lamb's daughter. Now next character is John. John is Lamb's son, and seventh character is great grandmother, that is Mrs. Field. Okay, coming back to the next slide. Now what is there in it? Let's start with the essay. If you will find the beginning lines of this particular essay, you will find that two children have sat and have been asking to their father Charles Lamb about some stories, real time stories. So based on Lamb's childhood experience, essay is keeping two children and a father. Father was Charles Lamb only, and Elia is the pen name. Two children, Elia and James, they were really eager to listen to their father's past life or maybe history. So they were eagerly waiting for something to be given from their father, on which pertaining to stories of Charles Lamb's childhood they were expecting to get. Now what happened next? These are I have just quoted the lines from the original text. That children love to listen to stories about their elders when they were children, to stretch their imagination to the conception of traditionary great uncle or granddame. So you can see in the first paragraph of this essay, Charles Lamb talks about his own grandmother, that is Mary Field, and grandmother was living in a huge mansion. She was living in a huge house, and Lamb says that she was not the owner of that house. Owner was somebody else, but this lady, this great grandmother, was keeping taking care of that house to the level as if she has been being the real owner. And next is house was taken care by grandmother Field. Coming back to the next slide. Now that house which was being mentioned in this essay actually has been keeping a kind of association with the lives of Charles Lamb, his brother John and sister Mary. And that is the reason he has been also mentioning that in summer vacations Charles Lamb used to go to that mansion and he used to share his quality time there with his granny, and whatever he had shared in his childhood, whatever memories he was keeping, he just was sharing all those memories to his kids John and Alice in this essay. Now they were so eager, they were just being spectacles. At the same time, children are very much there to give expressions on all the incidents. Now the place, let's talk about the content here in the text. There is a tragic incident which has been shared in this essay, that the place, the mansion where that great grandmother was living, it was very famous for a ballet. Now what is that ballet? Ballet actually is a story of, it's a ballet of two little orphans. There were two little orphans who were living with an uncle. So that uncle was very cruel, and he left those two children in woods, and because of hunger and cold temperature, those kids were somewhere really abandoned, and because of hunger they lost their lives and they got dead. And there is a bird being mentioned in the text, that is robin redbreast. Now robin redbreast, this is the name of a bird. So there were birds who were being very who were feeling pity towards those two dead bodies which were lying on the floor. So they just wanted, those birds really wanted to cover their bodies with dried leaves. So they somewhere all the birds titled robin redbreasts tried to cover the dead bodies of those two kids, so that they can somewhere get a kind of ceremony, or maybe a funeral or something should be done in that way. So what happened, just because of that incident, the entire place, or even in fact that mansion, turned into a kind of haunted house. Their soul, their their ghosts were haunting the mansion where that great grandmother was living. But great grandmother was not at all bothered about it, because she was a very religious lady. She was a very kind hearted person who would always be indulging herself in charity, and she would always be very religious. In fact, she had by heart Old Testament verses. So she was a very good, kind hearted lady. The moment she died, that house entirely became a haunted house, and the owner of that house wanted to change that mansion to another piece or another home. So he just change the entire ornaments of that old house. Before that, I want to tell you that whatever has happened in that incident, everything was being carved on the trunk of that chimney. There was a wooden chimney in that mansion, in which everything was being embossed or being carved by the cruel man, that this had happened, those two dead bodies were lying on the floor, or maybe lying on the woods, and bodies were covered by robin redbreasts, and everything was being mentioned by that cruel man on the trunk of that chimney. Right. Now next is when that man wanted to change his house, he was just keeping the ancient ornaments of that house and shifting it to the newer one, on which there was an expression given by John, who was a son of Charles Lamb. He said that that would be foolish indeed. He just interrupted his father Charles Lamb, and he said that how can this be possible? Old ornaments, how would they be supporting the new house? And related to that, there is a paragraph given in the text, if you will read, that if someone were to carry away the old tombs they had seen lately at the Abbey and stick them up in Ladies' Sea. Now, so old tombs have been represented here. The comparison has been given, reference has been given, that old ornaments of that previous mansion, which has become haunted now, has been transformed, taken to the next home. All the ornaments were taken to the new mansion, and it was just like old tombs were shifted to another new fashion place. So Ladies' Sea has been highlighted here because it has been representing a reference to any rich lady, whereas Abbey is Westminster Abbey in the text. Now coming back to the next section of it, as I told you that because of a disease of cancer, grandmother dies, but because she was a very religious lady, and she would always hum psaltery by heart of holy hymns, on which Charles Lamb was saying that I was not as religious as your grandmother. And Alice gave a look on that statement. She said that, oh, it was granny that much religious, and she was just giving expressions. So that is the reason I was telling you that although it's a reverie, although it's a story which has been given by Charles Lamb to his kids Alice and James, Alice and John, but they were not only being the spectators or the listeners, they were also being given their expressions on every incident being shared by the father. Now coming back to this, in this essay, they're also being given a kind of comparison where Charles Lamb, because he mentioned his life, personal life in this essay, so he has been saying that I was very secluded, I was a kind of introvert person who would always be accompanied by nature. I would love to watch fish in the pond, I would love to watch 12 busts of Roman emperor which were there near the house. He would be very much indulged in his own company. On the other hand, his elder brother John Lamb was a very smart boy, he's a very handsome boy who would always be there in all the activities, very active, and he would always be accompanied by others. So there was a great difference between the nature of Charles Lamb and his brother John Lamb. This was being shared by this father to his kids. And next he shifted his conversation. He said that at the end, John Lamb would always be there to help Charles Lamb, and something had happened to Charles Lamb's feet. That is the reason, he said that I was a lamb-footed boy, and my elder brother used to help me, and doctors wanted to cut my leg, one of the legs, on which kids say that no, please don't go with this narration. We have been being very scared of listening to that incident. So let us talk about our mother. So Alice asked, can you please tell us something about my mother? How was she? So she has been actually asking about her mother, on which because Charles Lamb was so much in love with his wife, so he said that the moment she asked me this question, I was just being so nostalgic. I thought that, am I talking to my wife or am I talking to my daughter, because features and expressions were very similar. So children wanted to change the topic of story narration. So she wanted to ask about her mother. So here in this paragraph you can see that when he said, children of Alice and Colban. Yeah, when I stood gazing, but both the children gradually grew fainter to my view, receding and still receding till nothing at last but two mournful features. He wanted to tell something about his wife, but the moment he looked at the face of Alice, he could even feel that Alice and John were disappearing and they were becoming faded. So somewhere he just wanted to go, why have they been being fading, and all of a sudden he realized, when he woke up, he realized that actually he was taking a small nap. Maybe he was reading something and got a nap, and it was just a kind of reverie. He was being a daydreamer. Whatever he lost in his life, he was just mentioning, expressing those pains, those errors and regrets of his life. So that can be seen in this paragraph, where it has been written that although these two kids were not saying these lines, but it has been being assumed by Charles Lamb that they were saying, we are not of Alice nor of thee, meaning we are not of our mother Alice, so called Alice, and we are not of you also, nor are we children at all, the children of Alice called Bartham's father. So actually Alice, who was Anne Simmons in real life, she got married to a man called Bartham. So those kids said that the children of Alice called Bartham's father, we are nothing less than nothing and dreams. We are just your dream children. We are not at all your children, not even Alice's children. So we are only what might have been, and must wait upon the tedious shores of Lethe millions of ages before we have existence and name. Lethe is a river, and it has been said in Greek philosophy that if anybody drinks water from that particular river, there will be a kind of situation where everything will become changed. You will become forgetful and you will not remember past memories. So he has been just saying, and then last line is very important, let me read it to you. I found myself quietly seated in my bachelor armchair where I had fallen asleep. Actually he had fallen asleep and he was dreaming whatever he had written in this, and with the faithful bridge is unchanged by my side. Only he could find, when he woke up, he found that only faithful, adjective has been used here, faithful Bridget was found sitting beside me. So she was the sister, he was the sister of Charles Lamb, and she was unchanged. Rest is all changed. Somewhere pain can be seen in these lines, that he lost many lives and good relations in his life. He was left with nothing in his life, and I mean, other than regret and remorse and nostalgia, nothing is there in it. So what is it? This is all about this particular end. And let us go to the themes of this essay. So if we'll talk about the themes, we can see that loss and regrets in Lamb's life can be seen as one of the themes. Second is the essayist reflects nostalgia on his childhood. He was being nostalgic there, where he was representing his regrets, and regrets the loss of his dear ones. This is all about this particular essay. I hope you have understood. If you have any doubt, you can text and your answers will be given there. Thank you so much. We'll meet in the next session with some new learnings. Thank you.